half article is better than thousands of Buhari.
Buhari is doing the best in Nigeria.
You're watching Roots TV Nigeria, and this is Dance of Democracy. I am Itogi Mo Edet. The supplementary elections has been concluded in most states. Kano in focus this time around, and result declared. Incumbent will be running for another 4 years, but not without some issues from opposition parties who felt that there were some mischiefs done in the course of collation, the course of voting, and the course of announcing the result of the elections. My guests today are observers, and they will be telling us the processes that occurred during that supplementary election. I have with me from my, at my extreme left, I have Abubakar Sadiq Mazu. He is the chapter lead of Connected Development in Borno State. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And I have Mokhtar Modibo. He is the Community Engagement Assistant, Connected Development here in Abuja. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Let's start with you, Abubakar. What was the process like in Kano?
Yeah, actually, looking at the process of what happened in the weekend during the process, the election entirely, it's something to say the Independent National Electoral Commission have done their own part, coming at a time, because all the report we have been getting, or all the report we have accessed on our Uzabe platform, is that there are a lot of reports of coming on time. Timely appearance of the ad hoc staffs to participate in the process of the election, and as well as in terms of the voters' turnout for the places that are supposed to be on the supplementary election. The turnout of the voters was massive, and as a result of that, there are a lot of issues, being that in the past 2 weeks after the first election, so many issues have come up, being that the ruling party and as well as the opposition party all march to as well advocate or call their supporters to see that they have participated in the process. So participating in the process, in terms of the turnout of the voters was massive, and as well as there are so many issues that were being called. Maybe in terms of the process, there are a lot of security challenges, a lot of things that during our undemocratic dispensation, we know that these are things that within the process we will get it right when the time is there. But as for now, as for what had happened in Kano, is something that had occurred due to the I can say a little bit negligence in terms of security, in terms of
now you're talking about the violence we witnessed there.
Yeah, well, in regard to the violence we witnessed there, there is lapses in both sides. Lapses, what I mean by lapses in both sides, lapses in the areas of the citizens, and as well as lapses in the areas of the security personnel, and as well as political parties that keep on pushing their own supporters to be part of the process in terms of agent, in terms of participating as journalists, in terms of participating as security personnel. We have seen a lot of banners.
Yeah, let me hold there, Mokhtar. What did Uzabe notice in the conduct of the election?
First of all, I would say we've recorded issues that we ought not to record. That's one. Two, we've recorded issues that is not advisable as a democratic nation, because as a democratic nation, we know that in each and every election, there should be an observer, there should be a journalist, there should be an ad hoc staff for the process of the election, and there should be the voters. So we've seen places, we've recorded cases where places, some electorate, or let me say some voters, were not allowed to access the voting point. We've seen places whereby some certain TV stations or journalists were not allowed in. We've seen places whereby observers were not allowed in the polling unit. So these are things that we have to stay away from it.
But is that enough to get one worried? I mean,
yes, because if I will go in, let's say summarizing the whole thing, we have had issues from Gama, local government of Gama ward of Nasarawa's local government of Kano. We've seen cases in Rogu. We've seen cases in Minjibir. And I was here, I think, somewhere last 2 weeks. I talked about the same thing in polling unit in Minjibir. You know, 2 polling units were affected in that particular local government. That's, I think, Koni or something. The pronunciation is something else. And in Gama, there were 44 polling units affected in that particular
ward that's in that particular Nasarawa local government. And all the polling units were affected by security issues. And if I said security issues, we've seen cases whereby voters will come out and vote from maybe 8 to 11, and just all of a sudden you see talks coming to burn the entire ballot paper or disrupt the entire process. You see, these are things that we ought not to have, because of we've had series of voter education. I know Sadiq was involved in the voter education in almost all the states in the Northeast. You understand? So these are things that we ought not to record. We've seen cases of cases of underage voting in region Limu.
Did that really come up this time around after we reported this in the first election?
Yes. In region Limu, also in Gama, all in Kano, we've seen cases of underage voting in Bauchi. We've seen another case in Budinga local government of Sokoto. You understand? And we've seen issues of voter intimidation and what have you in Adamawa and in Kano, because if you see the process, people have to run for their lives, you know, journalists too have to run for their lives. So these are things that it's alarming and it's causing havoc to the entire process of how our democracy is moving.
Let me turn to Abubakar. Would you think the entire violence that we saw, especially in Kano, affected the result? Now Ganduje has been declared winner of the election.
You see, if you take it in this way, coming back to what had happened in the previous election before the supplementary election, there are some issues that were being raised in respect to the coalition. That the results, there are a lot of cancellation, and as well as a lot of issues that result to calling for the supplementary election. And as well for the yesterday's, for the Saturday's election, there are a lot of places that people were being disfranchised of not voting. They didn't participate in the process. There are a lot of people that complain coming up to tell you that they have the opportunity to vote, but there is a force and intimidation in terms of voting the person they will vote. There are some places, all these allegations that will be raised are things that INEC is supposed to put into consideration before making the declaration. I'm not saying that the declaration they made was wrong. But because they have quite a legal right to make declaration after getting all the collated results, and as well as the number of the collated results have passed the number of the cancelled or number of the voters that were being cancelled. But all these things need to be put into consideration so as to avoid the breakdown of violence, because these are things that the opposition party or the people that were being that did not win will not take it in their own. They will erupt into violence if security were not tightened up. Because I even learned today and yesterday a lot of security personnel were in Kano so as to avoid breakdown of rules and order. So moving ahead, we need to come to a way whereby INEC will find a way to make sure the synergy between INEC and security personnel is very strong, that can avoid the occurrence of intimidation.
But of course, in the first election, we thought lessons would have been learned from what happened in terms of,
and as well, we made a lot of recommendations to the INEC. That's why whenever we're making a statement, we cast our mind back to the recommendation we made in the previous elections. We have made recommendation in terms of the issues regard to logistics, issues regard to security, issues regard to so many things, which we have seen some improvement in other parts of the recommendation we make. But to some instances, there are some cases or some things that were not being put into consideration, because if those things were being done properly, at its when due, all these things will have not come up. So INEC need to put their mind by looking at those recommendations that civil society observers are making to help the process improve, because we have so many issues that when you look at the recommendation being made to you, because if today you appear in a rough and untidy clothes, if someone recommend you to make use of a proper cloth tomorrow, by making use of that tomorrow you appear neat. So making use of that will make it in a way that our democracy will go in a very good way, and as well our voting process will have a very good stand according to the international standard.
Well, Mukhtar, I know there were a lot of recommendations from Connected Development and other observers who were there in the first election. My concern is, don't you think INEC would have considered these recommendations to make the supplementary elections better, especially in volatile states like Kano?
You see, one of our recommendations was You know, we are observing the process of election. And one of the things we noticed, one of the cases we recorded in the presidential election and the governorship election is, the small things we record is you see a place, a voting point where you will not find ink and the ballot paper is not fully identified. Bearing in mind, Section 129, subsection 4 of the Electoral Act says whosoever tried to maybe snatch a ballot paper, the offense is an offense and is punishable by 24 months imprisonment. So if that should be the case, why not identify this ballot paper by putting a tag? This ballot paper is for House of Representatives. This ballot paper is for House of
but I need to say they have done that clearly. Yes,
but they didn't do it to the satisfaction. But we've seen improvement in that aspect. We have observers, we have journalists. All the journalists, all the observers, all the police that did work on election supposed to be identified by INEC. You understand? So we've seen places whereby the vehicles of media personnel, security personnel is not fully identified that this vehicle is going to be on election duty. You you as an observer, you're not fully identified that your car will be moving with your car and is on election duty. We've seen all these kind of things, but we've seen improvement on this aspect. So when it comes to security deployment and security strategies, this is a work of the security personnel. They don't tell anybody that we are going to shut down this place. We've observed, we did election in Lagos whereby everything was moving normal. You understand? They didn't stop movement from 6 to 6 like what we do. And the election went normal. You understand? So the securities have their own strategy of knowing how all these things will be done. And ideally, they could have been making risk assessment to know how this thing would work.
Yes, definitely.
You understand? So places like Kano, it's not all Kano, all the polling units that is affected by these issues of security, but most of the polling units were affected. The securities have their own strategy. I'm not a security analyst. I don't know what they do, but seriously, there is a lapses in all these things.
Just hold on. Let me come to Abubakar just before we go. Is it possible INEC can avoid rerun elections in the coming days?
Yeah, we can avoid that, because if the process was being made in a very good manner in the first instance, all these issues of rerun would not have come up, because it is something that in the first instance, before even the commencement of the election, we have postponement. Postponement as a result of, as a result of what? As a result of logistic issue. The logistic that up to now we are not we are yet to understand the logistic behind it. So we need to get it right in the first place. As my colleague have stated it, there is a need to conduct a lot of assessment before we come into these instances. This is a 4-year period. Within that 4 years, we need to plan what we need to have. There is so many things that INEC need to do in terms of decentralization of its activities. For example, voters' education and creating awareness. What does INEC have to do with creating awareness? This is something that an institution of government need to tackle it. National Orientation Agency need to tackle all these things. INEC need to make themselves or focus on the issues of the election. How can they solidly focus on the election issue? What are the challenges? If there are issues of logistics, what agency of government can tackle that? Which agency of government can supply the need?
Of course, we had thought they will do more of that involving the
there is a lot of issues that we need decentralization.
But let me just ask Modibo finally, is e-election possible in Nigeria?
It's very possible.
Just 30 seconds.
To finalize everything, what Sadiq says, we can avoid all this of a supplementary election and everything, but it's not the work of INEC alone. It's the work of citizens and INEC, government, politicians, and everybody before we will have a free, fair, credible election. And for the issue of e-election, it's very, very possible. But first of all, one of our issues is collection centers and collection of result. So if we can adopt that, to do maybe use one of it as blockchain. I mean, you go clearly.
I really wonder what that will look like. I mean, the election year Nigeria will decide to go election electronically. But thank you guys for coming on the show. Abubakar Sadiq is the chapter lead code in Borno State, and Mukhtar Modibo, community engagement assistant code here in Abuja. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And that's our package for today. Thank you for watching. I am Itogi Mo Edit.
Half article is better than thousands of Buhari.
Buhari is doing the best in Nigeria.